All right, it is now time for raising funds for World Domination, day number 268. So, for today's update, there is once again no updates on the supposed appeal. I'm kind of surprised I never got any responses from the court or the LTB. And I still don't have any official case numbers or like an official confirmation that an appeal has even been filed. So presumably that'll work its way through eventually. There are 4 new sponsored blog types available in the Shopify Store. And once again, I also worked on the next long form video today. I think I've almost got, I'm almost done editing the intro. There's just lots of details and edits in this one. Okay, let's continue with work on the terminal block mining simulation game. Okay, so last night I think I finished most of the features for the input forms, so I can input text. And I worked on, last night I worked a bit on adapting the focus changing algorithm. So the next thing I want to add is to make it so when I press up or down, it'll change the focus. Input form element. Giordani says, hello there. How are you? Not too bad. How are you doing? So I think that last night I separated these container classes for those, or interfaces. Input element container. Doing great. Excellent. I've done some progress in my engineering journey. Don't know why, but I feel stuck sometimes. I think a lot of people feel stuck many times, especially in the world now. Lots of people are, I see tons of stuff coming up in my YouTube feed about people getting burnt out in their careers, and we're kind of, I think we're like in a recession a bit. There's a whole bunch of things changing in the economy right now that are making it difficult to get started, to make progress. I feel I need to know all things, like design as well as backend, an algorithm. It's like being in a sea of infinite knowledge. Yeah, it really does feel that way sometimes. I mean, it kind of is a sea of infinite knowledge. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. There's, I mean, it helps maybe to, I try to distinguish between like, what information or knowledge is like kind of just entropy, like it's human created entropy, versus what kind of knowledge is like permanent and intrinsic. Like it's not just noise that was created by people, like fundamental algorithms, mathematics, physics, stuff like that. That's the real stuff. And then there's a lot of stuff that's like the HTML standard. I was teaching a course on web programming, and for one of the, like a lot of the students also expressed that kind of concern, but there's just so much knowledge to know about all the different programming languages. And for one of the things that I brought up was I pulled up the actual specification document for HTML5 or whatever, and I prepared this lecture like the day before, and in the 24 hours that I went before I presented it, they released like a new version of this standard. So it's like, you know, some 300-page document about the HTML box model and all the intricate cases and stuff. And the problem is, like, there's, no matter how smart you are, there's equally there's thousands of equally smart engineers out there creating specification documents and like inventing new programming languages or new plugins and stuff like that. And there's no way to keep up with all that stuff, and a lot of that knowledge will become useless. Eventually we'll move on to a new HTML or JavaScript version. We'll just keep with JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. I'm going to try to learn design. I feel I'll deal with CSS, specifically creating color palettes. CSS syntax itself is easy to pick up and do things, but the actual pretty layout isn't an easy thing. Yeah, that's true. I personally kind of just resigned myself to the fact that I am not good at graphic design. That's an area where I just honestly, to do good graphic design, there's a lot of that. That's an entire category of thing to learn on its own. There's a lot of design theory and stuff. And I've decided, my role as the developer to just learn how to implement it. I think I can't, if my life depended on it, I could probably do good graphic design, but I have to just experiment. If you do user design, user interface design, color palette design, you most likely have a lot of stuff that you can actually draw on. So you've already made a UI, you can just steal a color palette from a previous project, and you've already kind of experimented with. I find that choosing the right colors and stuff, that's pretty important. Getting a nice font and stuff is really important. And to know what fonts are good fonts that you can use. And you also have to think about font licensing and stuff. But that's an area where, if you let your curiosity drag you around, there's you can go down so many rabbit holes about if you go into the complexities of color perception, if you look up rendering intentions and profile connection spaces between color profiles, and then device limitations of the color, and then it's all based on the theory of light and the photons, and understanding how photons are received by the eye, and the frequency of the photons emitted by the different phosphors in your display. And there's too many things to learn. You're gonna pick a subset and master those. Makes sense to focus on what you're most likely to get a job in. Focus on making that money. See pretty ugly library websites. Yeah, I almost think for especially anything to do with hardcore math or something, whenever I see a piece of software, some open source software, if the web design of the website is really terrible, that suggests to me that it's probably a fairly decent project. But if they have a really nice flashy website, especially one that it looks good but it's very bulky and slow, then that gives me a negative opinion of it. It's probably not designed by a software engineer, because if it was designed by an actual software engineer, the web design would be terrible. no exception. Absolutely, especially now. No, AI is doing these generic modern websites. Yeah, I actually hadn't even thought about the AI part of things, but like I'm mostly thinking about like some, like if you look at some like the website for some random like crypto library or something, it's always like very bad graphic design, really bare. It's some really bare bones design that was probably written by hand in like 1996, and then they just never changed it. Whereas like a modern thing, like a venture capital backed company would set up a really nice, probably some React.js animated thing with it's got some like animated video in the background and stuff, and for something like that, it tells you a bit about who made it and what their intentions were. And some of that venture capital funded stuff can be good because there's so much money they dump into it. But the problem is, after the venture capital money dries up, and eventually they'll decide that they want to get some return on their investment. So then they'll start out maintaining it and doing a good job, but slowly they'll put they'll release bugs and never fix them, and then try to push people up onto a paid product. Right. Look at that. It works. This URL will focus on front end. See how far I go? Probably would just get absolute brain toasted understanding how to make prettier UIs. Maybe. I mean, if you give yourself a specific goal, you can probably like I said, there's no way to learn everything. Like you could, if you sat down right now and tried reading every single HTML specification document for HTML 1.0 and all the revisions on HTML5, and then it's like, and then you get into stuff like Google tried to do this thing called Google AMP, where they were trying to make like a mobile version for websites. It was just a mess. There was all these special rules they were reinventing. It would just take you like infinite amounts of time to learn it all, and a bunch of it will be useless. You just got to pick a specific domain. It always used to be React. Learning like React, I think Next.js and that whole thing. I guess now, like, a lot of that design stuff is probably, like, unless you want to be a real graphic artist, you probably don't even need to really care about that stuff for the most part. Back when I was still doing this, we already had, there was Bootstrap, which was, I think it started off as like just one CSS file. Someone put in a Git repo, and it had like good defaults for like tables and borders and stuff. And then I think it evolved into like a much bigger, they added like JavaScript to it and stuff. Let's say I will learn the fundamentals of UI. So Sol, SOL, can wrap all my CSS knowledge, and I can do things with it. SOL. I don't know what that means. Let's say I learn the fundamentals of UI. There's probably a lot of fundamentals. You gotta have a more specific scope to maximize success. Maximize the chance of success. Okay. Yeah, fundamentals of UI. I guess it depends what you want to learn. Do you want to learn graphic design theory, or like the JavaScript stuff, or the CSS stuff, or even just learning how to use a specific specific like template or library or whatever would get you pretty far. Okay, when a button is selected, need to be able to set the cursor to nothing. I'm going to go with color palettes. Then I choose the correct colors. It's probably a good choice. It's a pretty common thing people criticize is bad choice of colors. And if you do choose the wrong colors, it's like it can really sink the success of your design. That's an area like figuring out how to choose the right colors. That's an area where it's hard to figure out what the right questions are to ask. There's probably that's actually, I think, a good application for AI when you want to learn something, you don't know what questions to ask. I think an AI would probably, if you ask like ChatGPT how to learn about the correct colors to set, like there's tons of things to think about, like text shadow and the contrast and and then also the device it's gonna be on, how big the font is. How do I get a job that I really want, but I'm not qualified for? I guess you can just, well, it's if you want a specific job, that's a hard sell. I mean, in general, you can just apply to a lot of places. Make sure you have decent communication in your resume or whatever you submit. I'd say in this day and age, ideally, if you can go through like multiple angles. So if you can like network your way to some of the people who work at this place. So there's like a lot of reconnaissance you could do. So the question is like, what company do you want to work at? If you want to work at like Amazon or something like that, the steps you would take is probably different from if you want to work at like a small local company that has 20 employees. If you want to work at that small company, if you can like get any kind of communication with someone who works there and like learn about like who would be looking at your resume, what do they like, where do they study, learn about the person. Being son of the owner, that's a good way. It's a position about satellite networking and cell phone programming. Satellite networking, that sounds pretty interesting. I guess you can learn a lot about the just make sure you know a lot about it if you're like naturally passionate about it. There's a YouTube channel if you're into like satellite networking. There's a YouTube channel by a guy who actually builds, like, he specifically plays around with satellites. You may have seen the channel. He has a video where he downloaded weather maps. Like there's these satellites that are in orbit that are constantly getting like maps about the weather and scans of clouds and stuff, and they broadcast this information for all you have to do is get a receiver and have it pointed in the right place, and you can download the data. And he has a bunch of other videos about like picking up old broadcasts from Russian satellites and stuff. I forget his name, but if you search for like connecting to Russian satellites or getting weather maps from satellites. He has a whole bunch of like satellite dishes and stuff on his property. So that's one way. But if you want to work at a specific company in a specific role, the task would be like do some reconnaissance on that company and like figure out who at that company would be looking at your resume, what team do they work on, and if you can figure out as much about that as possible, that might help you. It's not a guarantee, but it kind of helps you know what they're looking for. I guess honestly, satellite networking too. There's probably there might be some like legal stuff. So like depending on what country you're in and what country the company is in, there may be some like I'm going to assume like assuming you're a U.S. citizen and they're in the U.S., then maybe that's fine. But if you are on a certain visa or something, or no, I think you said you're in Waterloo, if I remember. But yeah, if you're here in Canada, but it's an American company, then the visa process and like qualifications that way, like if you don't meet some criteria, like I think in the U.S. anything that deals with anything like related to defense or whatever. Like you can look into ITAR and export controls and all that kind of stuff. And there's restrictions on who they can and can't hire. So having knowledge about that, some of that might not be in your control, but there might be areas where, like, if you apply to some position and it's somehow involved in, if it touches anything military, then you would have to make sure that you can, you're not like immediately research position at UW. Oh, okay. So in that case, I would say, so the question is what like, and you don't have to answer these, but these are questions that you should ask yourself or investigate. It's like, who is doing the research project? Who are the PhD students of that person who's doing the research project? Like, maybe look into some of the previous PhD students that this person, that like whoever's, the chair or head or whatever of this, do some reconnaissance on like the network of people involved, and they kind of learn like what PhD students they take, what qualifications what they have. Maybe you can even like, or grad students or whatever, maybe you can even like reach out to some of these people and say like, hey, I'm really interested in this. Or like if one of these PhD students or grad students, if they have something on their profile that says they're into some video game or something, you could reach out to them and be like, hey, I'm also interested in that video game. I have some questions about this. And that could be your networking step. But yeah, just some reconnaissance to make sure, like, because depending on what they're looking for, they may just like instantly throw your resume in the garbage and not look at it. Nice. The cursor movement is looking pretty good. Yeah, if you like, it's possible you might even apply for it or something, and then like something about your resume just doesn't come across right, but then like maybe you end up talking to someone or networking, or I mean theoretically you could even, like, if they're at UW, you could visit their office or something and just say like, hey, I'm a student and I'm really interested in doing this thing someday. I have some questions about this. Like, if you go there and you say like, please give me a job, that's probably not a good approach. But if you just if you're like curious and say like, wow, I'm really interested in the research paper that you wrote, I would say like probably 99% of people who wrote research papers have never ever heard someone say that to them. And having a person come up to them and say like, wow, your research paper was so cool. I read the whole thing. Is it Vim keybinds? No, it's just arrows, arrow keys. Okay, that does, I guess, everything that I need. Okay. Wow, we got 18 concurrent viewers. So that basically completes the development arc of the input form, I think. So now I think I can actually get back to why I originally wanted this, which was to add some inputs and be able to create a connection to an arbitrary block world. So to open up a world connection, would it be possible to use your code in another game, also in Java? Are you asking for a permission, or like theoretically, would it be possible to use it for another game? For the license, for now, I'm going to stick to the existing license. Although I guess we're kind of still. I saw a result. I think I saw the other day there was someone won a copyright suit. So I guess the courts are still recognizing copyright, even though with all this AI stuff, I think it's going to get copyright is kind of going to go by the wayside. Theory, yeah, of course. I guess it depends. It depends how much of a. It depends what you mean by another, because it could be profoundly different or profoundly similar. Eventually, it would be kind of nice. Like right now, it's pretty like. The UI is very minimalist, but one of my principles in writing it is to make it very generic. So it would be kind of interesting. I had been thinking about it would be possible, like within the game itself, to add support for calling like out to ChatGPT or like an image generation API. So like within the game, you could like maybe start up the game, and then so like the world is just blocks. You could even within the game, you could just you could like create new blocks at runtime, and then just say like this block represents a house or something, or any, you know, a tree or a rock or whatever, a stream, water, and then just say that that's what it is, and then you press a button, and assuming you have your API key for ChatGPT, then it could just generate a tile for you, and then like right at runtime you could add new stuff into the game with AI. That would be a neat feature, I think. Okay. So I guess that is for the WebSockets version. Oh yeah, there was one other thing I was going to do. Continuing, but satellite networking, what do you think about Starlink? I don't know. I guess I don't really think about it. It kind of just is. I think it's an amazing technological feat. I think it's like from like a technological standpoint, and like I think the existence of that network, I mean, I don't think any other country has anything even remotely. I almost think about it, the significance of it as like a military level thing rather than just like a private sector technology. Like the ability to have that kind of communication bandwidth anywhere in the world. And especially when, I don't even know what the state of the art is right now for, what kind of weak signals those satellites can pick up. Satellite phone calls can exist. So does that mean that there's 20,000 satellites up there that can monitor everyone's phone calls? I don't even know what the capabilities of it are, but it's I think a pretty amazing feat of engineering. All right, let's clean up some of these offsets. Might get rid of telecom lines. We'll probably still have. We'll continue to have everything. There's always demand for redundancy, and I think I don't know. I'm not sure what. I think the latency can theoretically be lower, but there's questions about energy intensity and stuff, the cost. The cost per byte, I'm sure, is better with physical media. We are in a pick of 27 people. Oh yes, 28 concurrent users. But they're not chatting. Maybe they're all bots. Or maybe they're all just shy. Oh, there's one. Jason Keen says, "Yo, how's it going?" Freeman 37 says, "Robot. Just chilling before I go to bed. Saw your stream in my feed a couple times now." Oh, interesting. It's going up even more. 31. It always goes up really high right before right before the stream is over. Oh, that's weird. It's not showing up. Am I muted? I don't think so. Did you chat something and then it didn't show up? If you tried to chat something, then so I don't have I only have like maybe 2 or 3 people banned at all time. There's like auto moderation that YouTube has. So if you chat about certain subjects, it seems like YouTube will just not let your things through with their, I don't know how their auto moderation works. If you chat something and you don't see it, it might be, I think it's probably on like top chat right now, but if you switch it to live chat, then you might see whatever you typed. And others can too. Oh, that's oh, that's wrong. Political beliefs are censored. Some of them are, but I can't tell which ones because they're censored. So you can talk about Starlink, but not reference the person involved in Starlink. Oh, did you try to mention Elon Musk and then it didn't come up? That's funny. It's man, the more I learn about how YouTube moderation works, the more tinfoil hat I become. Huh. Yeah, I found, so at first, like I left on the moderation because I do need some moderation. Sometimes people come in and just like spam swear words and stuff. And I thought it would like censor, bad word, naughty words, maybe like, I don't know, typical, like inappropriate the things that would be inappropriate in a classroom. I thought that was what would be censored, but what I found is that especially if someone makes a joke about a conspiracy theory, that's like the number one thing that'll get censored. But then if you mention like actual swear words, inappropriate stuff, it doesn't seem to care much about that. Or if you talk about like certain sensitive current political events. How far along are you on your $12 billion Super Chat goal? I'm getting pretty close. I think in total there's maybe around, I've raised around $3,000 or so. So we're almost there. Elon Musk. That guy. The Epstein stuff. Yeah, that seems to get censored a lot too. Which I find is very interesting because like that used to, for like the first 2 years of that stuff, I didn't even acknowledge it. It was just like, I don't care about this stupid stuff. Just, arrest the guy and be done with it. But that's become like mainstream, like central geopolitical news now. And the fact that people are still being censored for like even remotely mentioning it is kind of wild. My comment was about the idea of giving a monopoly to a certain person on the ability to give people internet. Yeah, I think there are certain things where like obviously if you're a business owner, you'd like to have a monopoly, but from the perspective of like government, when the government has certain like objectives they want to reach, especially things that are necessary for, like, I'm sure the military really, really likes having the ability to communicate, and that's a pretty important thing for them. And also like reducing the cost of getting into space and getting satellites up. That's like, probably a number one priority for the military. So I would assume the way it kind of works is like, if you're the second best at something, you like just completely lose. But if you're the best, then in a certain category, like if you want, like let's say, there's a bunch of companies that make oscilloscopes or something. You don't want to buy like the second best one for certain things. You want the absolute best one that can be made, or for something like space travel, or getting rockets reusable or stuff. It's such a small market. I'm sure like at some point probably the government comes to him and just says, okay, we looked around at all the people trying to do, reduce the cost of space travel, and you seem to be the best at it, so we will just give you infinite money and resources to get this done. And then suddenly now you get like massive contracts and infinite money, and then the person who's the second best doesn't get anything, or they get comparatively little. The Trumpet Files. Spale YK says, hello. How's it going? All right, let's fix some of these offsets. Why'd you choose Java for the block mining simulator? Yeah, thanks for reminding me. I gotta make a shorts video on that, because I think that's a common question. So the questions are, it mainly comes down to process of elimination. So this like you can start with what are languages that exist. So there's the C programming language. So I could do it in C, but I've done a lot of C programming, and I think C programming makes sense for applications where you have to use C. So if you have to talk to kernel APIs, if you have to have knowledge of the bare metal hardware, like things, like on embedded systems, like Arduino stuff, you have to flip bits and stuff, or do like bit masking. C makes more sense for that. Or like if you're writing in a context switch for an operating system, you basically have to use C. Then there's languages like Rust. So I don't know Rust, and Rust is, I don't know, the culture of Rust kind of makes me not interested in learning it. Then there's another competitor, which I think would be a good language of choice for this, would be Go, but I don't know any Go. I've never written a Go program. Then there's Python. I think that Python is great for prototyping stuff, or writing things that are like throwaway projects that are less than 1,000 lines. It's really not great for scalable, maintainable software, but it's great for like just kind of ad hoc experimentation. Or I guess it also is used in a lot of like AI stuff, where there's lots of like heavy numerical libraries used. Then there's JavaScript. It's going to work as like a desktop and server application. So JavaScript makes more sense if it's actually a web application. Although I'm not opposed to maybe. I think at the bare minimum it has to work like just in a pure terminal on a desktop. But maybe. Actually, I did recently look into seeing what's the state of the art now. Like actually, Java applications were one of the first things that could run in the browser, but they've since like removed that capability. But I think there's some other thing where you can compile your Java applications. Yeah, and then you can ask like, what are other languages that could be used for this? I'm sure there's lots. You could probably use like, I don't know, Ruby or something, or what are some other languages people use? I can't really think of any, but yeah, so there's lots of choices. But I don't really know many other languages. They could use Shell, maybe, but Zig, I don't know it. So and Java's a good language, I think, because if I write it in Java, like if I had a program that was written in 1 million lines of something, I would say Java is probably one of the top choices, because there's there's more programmers that know it, and I guess now that AI is here, it's probably easier for AI models to work with Java, and also they're really strong typing too. I think large language models would probably deal better with a strongly typed language than they would with a weakly typed one, just because there's more information there. Like people hate the languages because there's more tokens, they're more verbose, but you actually get something for all those tokens. Will you be doing some more forest live streams when spring arrives? That's a good question. Maybe we'll see what happens. I guess what am I at? 360. I got less. There's less than 100 days left until the 1 year mark. The idea of all countries just being friends of each other is so impossible to imagine. It's so simple but so hard. I don't know, maybe one day. Okay, my offsets are not correct. that might be right. Wow, 35 concurrent viewers. It's interesting. I wonder how the algorithm works. 37. It's going crazy tonight. All right, I'm about over my hour time tonight. Let's reverse engineer it. I do have a video on my giving my thoughts on the algorithm. I assume it's very complicated. Okay, tomorrow night, I guess I will implement one remaining thing on this. That'll be the close frame. And then we'll just verify that the, like, I guess I'll have in the interface for input form container. Yeah, whatever contains an input form will have to be able to respond to, like, button press on button press, and then it'll receive an ID. It'll receive the ID of the button that was pressed, and then that will, whatever it triggers will be up to whatever the containing frame. I think it has to meet with the comments. I guess. All right, with that, we'll call it a night, and we'll be back tomorrow night for day 269. Yeah. All right, have a good night, guys.